what we envision this place is going to look like once we get the funding in. So stop by and have a look there. If you have any questions, let me know. I should introduce myself. My name is GINA Paroli, and I'm the Event and Promotions Coordinator here at the Old Church. So welcome in here. A couple of things before we start. Housekeeping, if you have a cell phone, if you could silence that right now, we'd greatly appreciate that. Also, if you need to use the restrooms, you just go out those doors there and down the steps. The restrooms are down there. And there is a water fountain there in the hall as well, so if you don't want to buy beer or wine and you're still thirsty, there's a water fountain for you there as well. There's CDs in the back that he's selling for $10, so if you're interested in that, it's over there as well. And I wanted to thank Michelle's Pianos for providing this beautiful instrument that we have here this evening as well. And, one more thing, if you're into classical concerts, we're going to have the Astoria Festival Portland preview here in June 12th. It's a fundraiser for our Act 2 campaign, and we will have a pre-concert reception, and also if you just want to come for that and the concert, or just the concert, you have a choice for both those tickets. So I hope that you will put those on your calendars, and we will see you there. So without further ado, I want to introduce our artist, Dr. Gregory Partain.
Thank you very much. Welcome. So this is the third concert in my series, and it's the last concert that I'll be playing music from Beethoven's, what we now call his early period, or sometimes we call it his period of assimilation, when he assimilated the musical styles and forms of 18th century music. Now this would be the language of Mozart, who had died in 1791, just as Beethoven turned 21 and moved from his birth city Bonn to Vienna to seek further training and professional advancement. And it was also the musical language of the venerable Haydn, with whom Beethoven studied for a few years in Vienna. It was a very troubled student-teacher relationship, mostly because Beethoven has had such a difficult personality. Beethoven would later claim that he didn't learn anything from Haydn, but actually he learned a great deal from Haydn and from Mozart. Not from lessons so much, but from studying the music. Beethoven was a very, very serious student, but mostly when he could learn things on his own. So while it's true that in this early period Beethoven did assimilate the musical style of the age and master it, it's also clear from the early works that he was most often bringing a fresh perspective to the table. And that our task tonight is to do something like that with some very familiar music. I've arranged all the sonatas on my series in chronological order, but it just so happens that two of Beethoven's most beloved pieces fall on tonight's program, the Moonlight Sonata and the Pathetique, and I bet everyone in this room is familiar with at least some of that music. And I have to say it's given me a lot of pleasure to rekindle my own friendship with those pieces and try to hear them for all their power and originality, like the first generation of listeners must have heard them. But before we get to those two serious sonatas, I'm going to play a short piece, just 3 movements from Opus 10. And this is a sonata that in some ways looks more backwards than forwards. Beethoven was not always shaking his fist at the world and trying to strike out on new paths. And this piece very much shows the lighter side of his personality. He could be actually charming at times. This sonata is really easy art. It's mostly intended just for fun and entertainment. And in that way, it's akin to most piano music from the 18th century, at a time when most people considered the piano sonata genre to be relatively lightweight, intended for amateurs, and mostly just for their pleasure. So the first movement is full of good cheer, lots of humor, a lot of scurrying about. It's the kind of slapstick humor you might have heard if you'd gone to comic operas of the day. The second movement, instead of a serious or even deeply expressive slow movement, Beethoven gives us an allegretto, which is a little bit quicker in tempo. But the mood is a little bit hard to pin down because it's always vacillating back and forth between the light and dark of major and minor. It's a very interesting little movement. The last movement is a short, high-spirited finale. I think of it as a kind of a rambunctious romp. And even though there's a lot of imitative counterpoint in it, polyphony, which can be a very serious intellectual style of composition, Beethoven turns that idea on its head, and that's part of the joke. So we know that Beethoven could enjoy a really good chuckle, and musically speaking, this sonata is it.
Thank you.